Hey everyone, my name is Amina. I am an academic and founder of The Page Doctor. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about study techniques or revision techniques that you should avoid. You've probably watched so many videos on how to revise, how to study, good tips, really effective study tips, memorization techniques, but actually no one tells you what not to do. You end up just trudging along and continuing using your habitual study techniques that actually are not effective at all. And now I've identified 8 issues that I picked up from my students and kind of just observing what works and what doesn't work. Now these tips are very generalized, so don't forget that studying isn't a one shoe fits all. For someone, making beautiful revision notes and highlighting and making flashcards works. For some people, that's ineffective. So you really have to try to figure out what works for you. But a lot of these tips are quite general in the sense that for the most part, they are things that you should avoid. So first and foremost is going in without a game plan. Now this is the first thing because it's obvious. You cannot just sit down, open a book and start to study. You will end up overwhelming yourself with a number of things that you have to do. You'll end up not being specific and not targeting your weak points. And you'll end up doing things that you just want to fill the time up. You're not prioritizing, and rather you'll just pick up the first thing that you see or the easiest thing that you want to go through, and you'll end up just doing that. You might just do a bit of homework and just brush that off as you study, but actually you didn't do anything for your long-term memory. You didn't do anything for the exams coming up or for the assignments coming up, and you've just wasted that time. Overcome this issue. Go in with a schedule. Go in with a plan. So this is what you are going to do. This is the resources that you're going to use. Those resources should be ready for you. You shouldn't be searching for the resources during your set revision time. Go in with the equipment. So if you need any calculator, any sort of whatever equipment that is that you need to study, have that ready for you the night before, the day before. So during that focus hour or that focus 20 minutes or that focus half an hour, you are really getting what you need to get done. And you're not faffing around with finding the website and printing out the resources, and you end up completely messing up your schedule, and actually you end up feeling very overwhelmed and not getting anything done. The second is simply highlighting or being passive about your study. Now you might have heard the term active recall. I'm sure you've heard it a lot on YouTube lately, but it really is important, and research shows that active studying or just doing anything actively is the best way to memorize and the best way to study something and the best way to learn. So instead of just picking up a highlighter and just kind of blanketly highlighting things without any kind of technique or without any notes or without anything, you'll come back to that 2 months time from now, 5 months time from now, and not really know why you highlighted that. And it's really a pointless activity which makes you feel good in the moment but does nothing for you long term. So drop that highlighter, get rid of the highlighter, and think of a strategy that means that you're learning actively. Now this could include writing out some questions as you read. This could include maybe having like a sort of like a table where you have a summary of what you've just read, or it could be making flashcards, but actively making flashcards and accompanying questions. So you're really actively learning. Another one is using past papers. So again, you are testing your learning constantly, and you're not simply opening a textbook, reading loads of pages and walking away from that having not actually learned anything. Third study tip to avoid is just simply making flashcards and trying to have an aesthetically pleasing look to your work. Now again, this is another huge thing, a huge trend on YouTube, a huge trend on social media. I mean, they look beautiful, and don't get me wrong, I'm a perfectionist and my notes were very aesthetically pleasing, but that's because I had lots of time to do it. I started right in the beginning. So if you're someone who doesn't have that much time left, there's absolutely no point to get out all your fancy pens and your fancy notebooks when you only have a set amount of time to get something done. So get rid of the mindset that a pretty looking page is going to get you higher grades. No, it's only going to help you with your artistic skills and nothing else. Those are nice for social media, but in real life, if that doesn't work for you and it's a waste of your time, then it's just that, it is a waste of your time. Also want to try to avoid any sort of distractions, and with that again I want to address another very popular trend that I see online, and that's like lo-fi or sort of study music. And as much as I really like background music as well, I think I used to study with music at times, but it can be very distracting and it isn't something that everyone should adopt. If you find that you work better with some sort of classical music or some sort of lo-fi, some sort of chill music in the background, fine, that works for you, that's okay. But sometimes I tend to find that I just feel a bit overwhelmed with all the noise in the background. Even though it's quite calm music, I just need nothing except for my own voice in my head. Again, test it out, try it out, see if it works for you. But if you feel like you're getting distracted, or you're constantly having to stop and start, or you're having to stop the ads on YouTube, so that's a constant distraction. It's blocking your focus time. If that's the case, then just get rid of it. It's not working for you. And be really honest with yourself. Like, try both techniques. Try it with music and try it without music and see what works for you. But for the most part, I would say to get rid of any distractions and try to forget about and try to really be in that moment when you're studying. And on the same note, another thing to avoid is distractions in general. Now, aside from music, the biggest distraction of today, I'll let you say yourself, is the phone. Your phone is such a huge distraction. Like, as I just said that, my phone just went on a notification and I was distracted and I'm looking at that myself. As much as I love technology, I do genuinely think it's probably one of the worst things to happen when it comes to studying and focus and like productivity. It's so hard to focus on a task when you're constantly seeing these notifications pop up, or the sound, or you've got in your head like, I need to quickly check this on Instagram or whatever. Like, completely get rid of distractions. I know it's really difficult right now because of the pandemic. Libraries are shut, universities are shut, schools are shut, so you're probably in your house with your siblings and your parents, and it's probably quite hard to do this. But then, you need to try to find a way around it. If everyone wakes up at, let's say, 9 to 10 a.m, wake up a bit earlier, get up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. so you can have that precious sort of 2 hours in the morning where no one is awake. And that really worked for me. There's 5 siblings in my family and my parents. There's 7 of us in total. So working at 4 or 5 p.m. was just not an option because of how much noise there was in the family. Like, if my mum's speaking to someone back home, or like my siblings talking to each other in the corridor, it was just so much. So for me, I would wake up in the morning at like 5 a.m, get 2 hours of work done before school or before college, and that's me covered for the rest of the day, and I can get a bit more done later on. Try to think about how to get rid of those distractions and what works for you. The next one, again, I'm sort of addressing all the popular trends on YouTube, and they are popular for a reason because they are glamorized. But I'm going to be completely honest with you, as a teacher, as a lecturer, as someone who has seen students go through this process, not all of these glamorized things work. And the next one is cramming and long study sessions. Now, I came across an 8-hour study session, Study With Me, on YouTube the other day, and I genuinely had to think about whether I've ever done an 8-hour stretch, and I haven't. And that doesn't mean that, it won't work for you. Maybe it will. But really think about it. The way that your brain works, now let's think outside of the glamorized YouTube work with me or study with me sessions. Let's just think about the way your brain works. Your brain cannot be focused for 8 hours straight. Like, it just doesn't work like that. Even if you had 20-minute breaks in between, you still cannot maintain the same focus all the way through. Now, again, I'm saying cannot in a general sense. You might be someone extraordinary and you can study all day. That's fine, that's up to you. And if it works for you, please continue and be my guest. But for the most part, trying to sit down and study for 8 hours means, again, that by the end of it, you will feel burnt out, you might feel overwhelmed, and you probably won't remember the information that you learned in the last couple of hours. So really, was it worth sitting there for 8 hours when you could have done a bit of work, a couple of hours of work in the morning, relaxed in the afternoon, watched some TV, talked to a friend, went out for a jog, for a walk, and then did a bit more in the afternoon? And those bits of of study sessions would be a lot more productive, and you'll gain a lot more than trying to sit there for 8 hours and just feeling deflated about it. They are meant to, I really appreciate them. I think they're great, and I think especially in this day and age where you don't have that sort of community to study with, I think it's great. But I would say to just time yourself for how long you feel like you need. Don't feel pressurized to sit there for 8 hours or 5 hours or 6 hours and try to get work done and feeling like, why can't I do what this person is doing? Because let's be completely honest, like it isn't okay to study for that long, and also it isn't effective either. The next thing to try to avoid is adopting all the techniques that you hear and that you see. Now again, if you're here on YouTube and you're watching this video, you've probably watched other videos where there have been so many different techniques that are suggested to you. Now it's better for you to be an expert in one of those techniques and really know that that technique's going to work for you, than to try all the techniques and to just be sort of all over the place and none of them work for you. The most important thing to remember is that you're constantly recalling the information. So that could be through questions, through past papers, through asking and testing a friend, through teaching a friend. Make sure that you're constantly testing your knowledge. But aside from that, the technique that you use doesn't actually matter as long as it works for you and that you're consistent with it. There's no point of trying and being the jack of all trades and saying, I'm going to use all the techniques this person shows and all the techniques this person shows, and then just feeling a bit overwhelmed with it and then not even starting or not even learning anything by the end of it, because you spent so long trying to adopt this technique. That you have people that learn visually, so they just have to sit there. Like I know someone who just sits there and watches lectures and she learns everything, like she can memorize it like that. That's up to her. You have people that learn through listening, so through audio, and can listen to someone speak and can just learn like that. You have some people that are more like have to write things down. Some people have to do a combination of them. So think about which kind of learner you are of those, and like I said, I'll do a video about it just so you can identify what kind of learner you are, and then the best techniques associated for that kind of study. And last but not least is try to avoid memorization without understanding. If you understand a topic, you're more likely to be able to memorize it and to be able to apply that information and that knowledge to other questions. The problem with simply memorizing a technique or a piece of information is that you're not able to actually apply that. So something that happens when you cram last minute is that you end up just sort of memorizing frantically. And what happens is when you go to the exam, you now have the question in a different format, or it's in a slightly different, kind of technique, or it's in a slightly different presentation to what you're used to. And because all you did was memorize that one question, you can't apply that now. You're not able to extrapolate and apply what you've learned into that particular question, even though you know the technique. So always try your best to understand the topic, know why the method is as it is, know why you're doing something, know why the reason for this thing is, and then you're able to apply that information to a question of that topic, no matter what the question is. And I think this is so important for not only for university questions, but also GCSE and A-level. If you're a student at those levels, then it's really important for you to understand, as the new question types are more to do with understanding and sort of application than they are simply memorizing some facts. So I really hope this was helpful in trying to identify things that you should not do when it comes to revising. And like I said, not one shoe fits all when it comes to studying. So do try to tailor your technique to the kind of student that you are. There is no good or bad type. It's just a matter of adapting to what you are and recognizing the kind of student that you are in the best way that you learn. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate a subscribe. Don't forget to comment and let me know what works for you, what things have you dropped because they just didn't work for you when it comes to studying, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.